I'm going to introduce Mahmud as the session chair. So thank you again, Mahmud, for putting this session together. Adjusting the justice lens is one of the most important lenses. We have been talking about adjusting many lenses, and now we are in the final plenary, and it is really about getting the justice right and adjusting the justice lens in that case. So Mahmud has kindly thought about how we wanted to talk about this session, and we actually this time we actually went to the participants because you came to us and saying that this is an important topic for you, and that's how the session is being organized. So therefore, I'm going to turn over to Mahmud to share the session, and I look forward to listening to your presentation. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor Ratana. It was a great privilege for me to chair this important session, Adjusting the Justice Lens. And hello, everybody. Welcome to the session. Today is the final day of the Congress, and this plenary session is about adjusting the justice lens. I am Mahmud Islam from Sylhet Agriculture University in Bangladesh. Today we have three plenary speakers, Dr. Mohammad Sajidul Haq from Portuakali Science and Technology University in Bangladesh, Dr. Shio Segi, Konan Women's University in Japan, and Joel Das, Leibniz Center for Tropical Marine Research, Bremen, Germany. The format of this plenary session is three speakers will present in a row, then there will be a question and answer session and discussion. Before I invite to the speaker, maybe it would be better to have a brief on the session theme. Small-scale fisheries have been increasingly drawn attention as a sector that deserve justice and equity in the face of multifaceted deprivation and vulnerabilities. However, to strive towards a more equitable and just space, it is important to understand the current situation and explore the kinds of injustice and inequity that small-scale fishers face on a regular basis across different contexts. This session, composed of three presentations, is organized to showcase multiple cases of risk and injustice that need to be addressed. We will explore how blue economic growth leads to displacement, dispossession, exclusion, ocean graving, and impact on the livelihood of coastal smallholders and of small-scale fishers in various parts of the world. However, the injustice is not only limited only to water. In absence of any right to the land held by small-scale fishers led to inequitable distribution of relief assistance from NGOs, eviction, severe indebtedness, and loss of livelihoods, all of which contributed to further marginalization of many fishers. The case of inequality and injustice become more aggravated in the COVID-19 pandemic times. Particularly, the injustice resulted from the state policies and responses to COVID-19 impact small-scale actors within the fishery sectors more profoundly. The session aims at exploring how different forms of injustice prevail in small-scale fisheries and how adjusting the focus of justice lens could facilitate small-scale fishers as an equal and just partner in ocean development plans. So we have today we have three plenary speakers. Now I would like to move on to the plenary talk on our first speaker, Dr. Mohammad Sajidul Haq. So here is I would like to introduce a brief of the activity works and research focused of Dr. Mohammad Sajidul Haq. Dr. Mohammad Sajidul Haq is a professor and chairman of the Department of Fisheries Technology and at Portuakali Science and Technology University in Bangladesh. Dr. Sajidul is awarded for his PhD degree from Prince of Sogla University, Thailand. His research interest includes seafood safety, processing and quality control, safe and quality dry fish and fishery products, occupational safety, health, and livelihood improvement of small-scale fishing communities. As a pioneer researcher in Fishers OSH, Dr. Sajidul is a host partner of Fish Safe 2015. fishing safety intervention program in Bangladesh, a collaborative project implemented by Fish Safety Foundation New Zealand. As a principal investigator, he has successfully implemented different research projects funded by international and national funders. So now I would like to Dr. Mohammad Sajidul Haq to deliver his plenary talk. Please welcome Dr. Mohammad Sajidul Haq.
Thank you, Dr. Mahmud al-Islam, for a nice introduction. And I'm going to share my screen for presenting my presentation. Is visible, right?
Yes.
Yes, it's okay.
Yeah, we can see the screen. Yeah,
okay, thank you. So I can start. And yes, dear participants, yes, already you, Professor Mahmud al-Islam, he has introduced me. Yes, I'm Professor Sajidul Haq from Patuakhali Science and Technology University, Bangladesh. Yes, in this session, I'm going to present as in the introductory session, chair has expressed how COVID was impacted to the small-scale fishers. And yes, it was during the last 2 years when COVID was impacted to the whole world. And then, so we, as my university and me, we are working in the coastal regions, and then we try to deep look into the how is impacted on the small-scale fishers and actually what is their knowledge, practice, and preventive measures. So that's why from that study, I just going to share you a brief on the COVID impact on small-scale fishers. Here, the title I ensured that knowledge, practices, and economic impact of COVID-19 on small-scale fishing communities in Bangladesh, and then we come up with some policy recommendation for their improved livelihoods. As introductory, yes, as we know, everybody we know that COVID, it was first reported in Wuhan, China in December 2019. And in Bangladesh, it's first appeared on 15 April. On the 15 April, so from 2019 December to last month until I prepared this presentation. And then you see that about 500, more than 500 million confirmed cases all over the world, and also over 6 million people are dead globally. And in Bangladesh, it was first reported on in 2020 March, yes, and then end of the March in 2020, where the country, all educational institutes goes shut down, and also government announced the lockdown for preventing as a measure for COVID again. And actually, overall, it was a new experiences and how to face this type of pandemic in the locally, especially for the fishers. So when we look into the fisheries sector in Bangladesh, so even it is not on the our COVID situation, in general, it has a great impact on our total economy of the country. The gross domestic production, it's contributed 3.5%. It has in agricultural GDP, it is about 1/4 contribution, and total export earning, it also contributing 1.5%. Is supplying 60% of animal protein, and we are getting the 62.6 gram per capita per day fish. And also the overall the fisheries sector is our, as a developing countries, our employment opportunity is contributing more than 12% population in this fisheries sector. And then is it this sector, fisheries sector, especially small scale fishers, how is just impacted, that we wanted to look into. And here I before I going into the fishery impact of COVID on fishers, if you see that the what was the overall scenario of COVID situation from since March 8 to last year August. Here in the red mark in this phases from March 8 to May 30, it was the peak time for the first wave of COVID-19 in Bangladesh. And it was a strict lockdown, and that was the starting in the country, in Bangladesh, and including the fisheries sector. It was, and after the May 2000, it was 2020, and it was government take some initiative, and which is some relaxation, and also following the health measures, and step by step, government taken different measures for combat with this COVID situation. And again, in the 2021, second wave comes, and also the third waves. It also in June 2021, and it still continue when the Delta variant is arrived, and it was again the devastating situation in the country. And so all the things, directly, indirectly, and sometimes more or less, it was impacted. And especially what I will going to present in the result oriented, or from my study, it was conducted during this time when the globally the COVID situation was in very severe situation in the early first phases of the COVID situation. And it was a challenging study of what I'm going to, because during COVID we have some online survey and also the physical visit, as I am in the coastal region, so we had access. We can go easily by following the health measures, wearing mask, and as it was also it was good enough for, because our educational institute in throughout the COVID situation, it was last year, October 2021, from March 16 to 2020 to 2021, it was closed. So we had time, and we can closely monitor what's the situation and how COVID is impacting to the coastal communities. And from the study, from the literature, that how the fisheries sector it was impacted. If I say simply a few, as from the literature, that hatchery or nurseries, they had no feed supply, drugs, and medicine, and also probiotics, and also from the nursery, their lack of their supplies and feed ingredients. It was the COVID situation, international flight, it was almost closed in the most of the time. And that time, the feed ingredients import, it was limited. And also our input, 40% in the local transportation. The first period that I mentioned in the previous slide here, during this time, it was so strict lockdown, and even the transportation for fish, it was also is very difficult. But during the other wave, government has taken this type of initiative that as the emergency food service, fish and feed and other support materials, it was transported oil. But during the at any stage of supply chain, food supply chain or fish supply chain, production, marketing, processing, and input supplies for aquaculture and even for the fisheries, all open water fisheries or marine fisheries, every sector it was impacted negatively. And there are different studies. We observed that the small scale fishers, so this study what I'm going to present, and from the result, this is also published, and after that I saw resilience of small scale fisheries in Bangladesh, COVID-19, and you will know that during that time, right now, from the next 2 weeks, yes, 20 May, the 65 days fishing ban period, it was also a great impact on the small scale fishers. And some other study also on the aquaculture, how aquaculture production, it was an impact by the COVID. And there are several studies I see. and also the overall the food consumption, fish consumption, and other aquatic food supply. So this is also has the different authors that studied that the COVID, it has really impacted. And that's why this study, we set an objective that actually, yes, the government has many initiatives to prevent about and to aware the peoples about COVID. But how about the situation was for our fishers? So that's why we studied the knowledge and practices, preventive practices of small-scale fishers, and we also identify especially what is the economic impact, what is their income, it is how it was impacted, and overall, and also we studied their socioeconomic status in the 3 coastal region of Bangladesh. This is the study map where we are collected data, or this study was conducted. I mean, here in the coastal region, Borguna, Patuakhali, where my university are located, and Cox's Bazar. It is the map of Bangladesh. You will see that here. So these coastal 3 districts we covered for this study, and here for your information that you may further may have any question that how during COVID time and restricted lockdown we conducted. So we had a team members in Cox's Bazar, and he was collecting data from there and sharing, and we from PSTU, and also Borguna is close to next to our district. It was not too far, and we. So from these 3 regions, so and this why these 3? These 3 regions are coastal and small-scale fishers, artisanal fishers are dominating in these 3 regions. So that's why we selected these 3 regions, and from Cox's Bazar and Patuakhali, we have collected about 100 respondent data, and from Borguna it was 50 to 60 data were collected from the fishers, and data were collected by one of the research assistant on the, with the directly from the coastal fishers, and we have prepared a questionnaire, and we visited face to face, and also from some keynote, I mean key informer like Upazila fishery officer or field fishery officer. We had also some information from the online survey by our questionnaires. And this data were also statistically analyzed. And now I would like to share you some data that what was the socioeconomic characters of coastal fishers. By age, most of them they are 30 to 50. Yes, if we cover this, and mostly majority they are in 3 regions. They are about 30 to 40 age, and also so this is the main energetic age, because additional fishings they need so energy and physical effort. So that's why this is the age where mostly involved the fishers. And yes, our respondent were all we covered for the male fishers, because they usually go for fishing to the sea. And what is the educational status? You will see this is the that are illiterate. Many of them, they just can write only their name. They have just they know anyhow, or that just they needed to write their names as a signature. And but institutional, there was less institutional degree, like up to primary. We say the grade 1 to 5. Cox's Bazar, it was about 48% responded. It was up to 5 classes, 5 grade. And above 5 grade, we'll see in 3 regions, yeah, it was very less. And so educational status, it's not in everywhere in the world, you know, that our educational status for fishers are not so good. And family members, mostly 3 to 5 members, majority of them, and also some of them have larger family members, but at least 3 to 5, and even some of them have the more than 8. Health facility. This is the one of the important parameter you will see, because COVID situation, how they have taken their measures and their suggestion, and if they out of COVID situation also, if they have any health problems, and to whom they take their health facilities, health services. So that was mostly that as the village doctor. And and community clinic, and also sub-district level hospitals. So here I want to clarify that village doctors is mostly they are not a medicinal degree like MBBS doctor. No, mostly they are the drug vendors. They have the pharmaceutical pharmacy just to sell the drugs, and some they have some training on the local or village doctors, like they have one certificate, and from some organization they have trained, and then they just mostly if they have any problem, they just visit to the those kind of doctors in the pharmacy, and they take their medicine. And community health clinic, yeah, in every ward, like local municipality, they sometime visited, and we see the in Borguna mostly people are, because they have some trust on that, and easily it is a government service, easily, but they can get this kind of facility. They usually go, and sub-district level it is usually far away in the area, and sometimes they don't want to go there, and because they see that, okay, I have only fever or headache or any other problem. So if I take some medicine from the pharmacy, and that way I will recover. So in the study, in the following result, we will see also that these are the, we should focus the health services for the small scale fishers. And these fishers, our respondent are mostly their full-time occupation, and they are mainly the fishing. And in our respondent, in our study, we also cover not only the fishers, the skipper, boat owners, and some other employees who are related to the fishing, like their engineers for the engine maintenance, and for boat making, carpenters. So those also we had taken their respondents. And for the fishers, mostly most of them, they have the experiences about more than 10 years. So this is the overall socioeconomic status that I shared with you. Yeah, this is just I don't want to talk again here. The coastal fishers' knowledge and their and COVID-19 respondent measures with the geographical locations. And so in these three regions, we studied there, we have asked them some common symptoms or common knowledge, information about the COVID-19. Because again, but today when we are this conference, or I am presenting that about the COVID impact, but when this study was conducted during April, May, June in 2020, and really it was a different scenario, and we cannot even imagine that people or coastal or fisher, they will not go for crowded people in a crowd, or always they will wash their hand, and they will not coughing to the outside. And if there any headache or fever or neck ache, so this kind of symptom, they always think is maybe as usual. But these are the one of the symbols, symptoms for COVID that we ask them that they know or they not. And if they know, and how they prevent, or what is their practices against the COVID measures. And then here in these three regions, we say the Cox's Bazar was taken as a reference area, and we compared with the other two, Borguna and Patuakhali, that the as comparatively which region was higher knowledges and practices. But in comparative with the, so there's a 0 is our Cox's Bazar, and 2 is Patuakhali. and one is we indicated the Borguna. Here, knowledge about hand washing, it was a very common knowledge about on COVID. So it was a significantly higher in Borguna than the Patuakhali, and also it was higher in Patuakhali fishers. Then knowledge, but here and in case of respiratory problems and also and their neck ache. So this kind of knowledge, it was better in fishers for the Borguna. And you see that how our result is correlated, that in the previous slide, we show the Borgunas fishers usually for their health problem, they go to their community clinic than the village doctors. So that's a community clinic is a government service, so they have the is a better services for the citizens. So here thus we see the Borguna it's getting better. And for practices, again, the Borguna peoples are better, and then Patuakhali, and also in the other situation in any kind of preventive practices. So Borguna shows Borguna fishers had there's a higher responsive in terms of knowledge, and also an educational status in the previous slide also see that better. And here knowledge and practice, you'll see that another important I want to share, that when COVID situation arrives in Bangladesh, government, because all of the country are not at the same time, it was not the severe condition. Government makes some color coding that which district or region are highly affected and are not. But Cox's Bazar was one of the tourist places in Bangladesh and in the world, even famous places. So people are frequently traveling from outer places. So that's the reason maybe the Cox's Bazar, it was the always the higher impacted and higher infection rate, and it was red color coding, and government has 3 color coding: red, yellow, and green. So red is where the number of people are higher infected. So it was the overall population in Cox's Bazar, and that was also directly related with the fishers. Then I would like to share you now about the how it was their income. We made some categories that their income below 10,000, 10 to 20,000, and more than 30,000, more than 20,000. So these 3 regions, Cox's Bazar, Patuakhali, and Borguna, before March, when we visited them, interviewed them, we asked them that what was their monthly income, and after March. And there will see the before March, their income was that 70 and 80, yes, almost 80%. It was in these ranges, 10 to 20,000. But when after March, COVID-19, so this range, it was, you see, the significantly reduced. And here you'll see the this range a bit increased, but some other cases are decreased, because here they may have the higher income people are also, because some fisher may have the more than 30,000 incomes, but here it's reduced. There is nobody here in these ranges. And COVID, so this how, and in the following slide, I will also share you the specifically the amount of the specific amount of income of what are the percentage of reduction by the fishing. And COVID has impacted of not only overall in the specific oils, and lack of laborers, like the fishers. here in Patuakhali and also in Cox's Bazar, Borguna, that some people are migratory fishers. They are coming from the neighboring districts or other districts. But during COVID, and it was lockdown, transportation limitation, and that's why labor shortage, it was one of the major causes caused by the COVID-19. And low price of fish, it's almost everybody, every fisherman respondent, they said, yes, during the COVID, their fish price, it was much lower. And even this response was always higher for in each region. Lack of processing system, lack of ice, and higher price of ice. Yes, if they want to buy ice, even it is not available, and concern of infection. Even it is also I face, or when I go to market, I want to buy fish. In our country, locally, we say the fish market is mean lots of crowd, lots of noise, because many people will be there and no social distancing. So there is something awareness. Even me myself, I were very aware or very careful or concerned if during COVID time I go to market and I want to buy fish, because many people are in a very close contact. People are very in a crowded condition. So there is a chance of the risks of the infection. So this also sometimes makes the lower price or lower demand of fish during the COVID situation. And during COVID, here I will introduce you or share this two type of fishermen or fishing system by the artisanal fishers or small scale fishers. Some peoples or some fishers that they go for daily fishing. When the early morning they go for fishing with a small boat, and yes, mechanized, or in this 3 to 5 people they are going. And another type of fishing, the trip fishing or deep sea fishing, or the additional fishing boat, they go for 7 to 2 weeks. I mean, one week to 2 weeks, 7 to 15 days, or even 20 days even they go for. So this type of two types of fishing we observed in. Here you will see in Borguna, our respondent to whom we collected this data, nobody will go for the daily fishing. They are only just for trip fishing. But in Cox's Bazar, you will see this data, and in Patuakhali also we know this data is not here, but we know in Patuakhali and Cox's Bazar we also observe the trip fishing and daily fishing. So daily fishing, if a fisherman more than in a month, more than 25 days, they can fish. But this, you see, it was reduced during the after Corona. We mean during the COVID situation, this range was significantly reduced. And here you see the 25 more than before COVID situation, more than 25%. I mean, more than 25 days was fishing. This kind of fisherman, it was about 40%, but here after it was only 80%. So they cannot go. But this finally it goes to the shorter duration or shorter trip duration. They get 1 or 2 or 3, or so this kind of trip duration also here in generally 7 to 15 days. But during COVID time, this trip duration also becomes shorter duration, maybe maximum 6 days, where it was minimum 7 days or sometime minimum 5 days. But here it was maximum 6 days. So these for the income, in the next slide, we will see the income. It was highly impacted and highly reduction for the Borguna people, and that was correlated with this situation here, because when the trip fishing was lower or trip duration was lower, but the Cox's Bazar fishers, they go for the daily fishing. and they go for shorter trip than the larger duration trip. But so that's why they can compensate their income somehow. And for the Potuakhali fishers, they are mostly apart from when this COVID situation, when they not go for fishing, sometimes they move to the other occupation. Like one of the common scenario we see here, like they go for some agricultural activities or household farmings, and one of the another things is they hire a motorbike. So, and they is a transporter. They work as a transporter as a local vehicles. So this we also see sometimes. So this is how they can cover. But in Borguna, people they are much affected due to this COVID situation. And geographically, Borguna, if we say the connection with or distance with the capital Dhaka, Borguna is more remote and more distance than others. So they even cannot transport so long distance. Where Cox's Bazar and Potuakhali, from Potuakhali, Borguna is a divisional area. They come, and from Cox's Bazar, Cox's Bazar itself is a big city and tourist area, and also it can comes to Chittagong. This kind of local transport or short distance transport, and that's how they can continue their fishing activities, and somehow they can recover their income, and other than the Borguna's fishers. And yes, so that's I will say here already the highest income reduction by fisher type. Yes, it was missed in the previous slide that we had the fishers who are just labor fisher. They just work with the fishing, hauling the net and catching of fish or handling of fish, and skipper, boat owner. These and also the carpenter or some engineers. So we have also categorized among these three type of fishers group who are most impacted, and among the these three regions who are most impacted. So among the three regions, we already said the Borguna it was most impacted, and among the three types of fisher group, skipper or boat owners. And it is why if I say because the skipper, they are a bit the leader, and they have the leadership and also the higher income, the share. I have another presentation in the that time I will share you that the sharing income share of these three groups. So that also impact. So boat owner, they usually they have the much capital because whatever the income from the fishing, they invest much for their net and for their boat, but they cannot switch, they cannot shift their occupation. But for the daily fishers, okay, today I'm catching fish. If I am not, I may go for the, I said, for agricultural activities or for daily labor or for motorbike driving for local transportation. But boat owner, yes, he's a bit rich. He has capital. He cannot, it is the only maybe the business for catching fish, and so that's why he cannot easily or so fast he cannot go for any other kind of investment or business. So that's why their skipper or boat owners, mainly their net owners, they are impacted. Yes, another information here I would like to share that what was the support from the government and how this in these three regions, because when COVID situation comes and government, yes, in every country globally, they try to support the different peoples from the government subsidies. And so that's why we asked them what was the subsidies for the, especially for the COVID situation. Actually, for the COVID, there was no support special fisher groups. But here another information is very important because it's always during COVID time, from the May to June, July, from 20 May to 21st July, this 65 days, it was a fishing ban, marine fishing ban period in Bangladesh. So for that ban period, government has subsidies for the fishers, and that was supported, and that was also impacted highly, and it was delayed supplied because this COVID situation. It was not transportation oil; it was late delivered. So that's why in this study we make a term like crisis within crisis, and that's and also IU fishing. I would like to share that IU fishing it also, because when people are not getting support from the government or for the COVID situation, and even it is the fishing ban period for the conservation of marine biodiversity of Bay of Bengal, but for their livelihood, for their food security, fishers they are going for fishing. So that's why this kind of also IU fishing, we can say it was existed, and it was elevated during the COVID period. And for this study from our project, Fish Safety Foundation, we got have some donation like hand washing, soap, hand wash, and sanitizer, mask, all these things. But there, it was not, everybody said it was not sufficient at all, and government should support. And what kind of support they actually work? They want the food rations, the mainly food, or in terms of financial support. So mostly you will see that in each region, in each area, fishers demanded their financial support or the food rations. And everybody says it has a great impact. And if this continue, this kind of COVID situation, like right now, it is not COVID situation too much, but that time they are highly concerned about their professions. Yes, here that I was telling a little bit in the previous slide. Here in the specific income reduction, economic impact, I would like to share here. The fishers, skip owner, skipper, boat owner, and others. Here you'll see the income was about 50% reduction. It was reduced for the skippers. Here for the fishers, it was about 26%. That was that. And by the amount, specific amount before COVID, it is about 150 USD, and it's reduced about 40, and so it was in percentage about 24%. But here the carpenters or engineers, they have they are not only engineer or mechanics, only maintenance work for the boat or for the engine for the fishing boat engine. So they, other engine or other carpenters, they can work for other furnitures or everywhere. So that's very good that their COVID was not, their income was not impacted, because they can easily switch to the
yes, speaker, you have 5 minutes, please.
Okay, thank you for remind. Yeah, yes, I can finish with 5 minutes. And regionally, I said previously that you see the Borguna fishers, it was about 64% income reduction, and Patuakhali it was 40%, and Cox's Bazar it was 15%, because they can, the trip fishing, it is converted to the daily fishing, higher duration, trip duration becomes shorter duration, and this is how they can cover their yes. Here is almost the same monthly income overall. It was previous slide, it was the overall, and here, and previous slide it was the specific group and specific geographical locations. Here you see the monthly income difference. It was more than 80 USD, and also the fishing frequency and their fishing, it was also significantly reduced for before and after the COVID, or during the COVID situations. It's irrespective of fisher groups or locations. Yes, I am now at the conclusion stages, and that from our study, you see that the better knowledge about the fishers who has the better knowledge, and they can have the better preventive measures, and fisher experience income reduction from 26% to 50%, and fishing reduction was more prominent in Barguna than the Cox's Bazar and Patuakhali, and it was limited to the support from the government or non-government support was very limited or no support, and that's why we suggest for some recommendation, and that of course they should have the fishers should have better education facilities and better health facilities at the local level by the local governments authorities, and also because when they have better education, we will have awareness and we will have knowledge about the health precautions, and that can apply for the fishers. And government, non-government support during this kind of crisis or pandemic or out of pandemic, they should have. And fishers, especially the licensed fishers, they should have regular health checkup, or we will say the health insurance, or financially, financial insurance, or low or no interest bank loan for the fishers, or for the skipper, boat owners. So government should support for this kind of support for the fishers, mainly in terms of financial or food rations or bank loans, and easy resource of the others during this kind of transport restriction. How can they can easily get their fishing net and other materials and ices, and although we had one recommendation, and that was finally, or in the second or third wave government, it was considered, and this is that the transportation of fisheries, it was a emergency transport for food supplies. So that gives a very important and easy transportation, and it recovers this kind of losses. And finally, yes, we always say that sufficient, and yes, support should be sufficient, safe and dignified and respectful and transparent and equitable way. So not only support, but it should be in those kind of regards, it should be. And finally, I would like to finish with the thanks to my PSTU for conducting this research, and this research was supported by the Fish Safety Foundation New Zealand under the Fish Safety 2025 project. And I'm very pleased and thanks and getting this opportunity to present as a speaker that was in the observation of the International Year of Artisanal Fishers and Aquaculture 2022. That's TBTI, yes, is a great organizer for this event. And I'm grateful to all of you, all of the presenters for listening me, and thank you all. And with this, I'd like to finish. Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Sajidul Haq, for his very nice and detailed presentation to portray the fate of small-scale fishers in Bangladesh. Now, I have the privilege to invite Dr. Shio Segi from Konan University, Women's University. Dr. Shegi is an associate professor at Konan Women University in Japan. He received his PhD in anthropology at the Australian National University in Canberra. His research work focuses on applied anthropology, neoliberalism, political ecology, marine protected area, and natural resource management. So please welcome Dr. Shegi for his presentation. Dr. Shegi, over to you, please.
Thank you, Dr. Islam. So my presentation today is titled, "How does land policy intersect with disaster recovery for small-scale fishers?" This study is based on my research from the island of Bantayan in the Philippines. So give you a little bit of research context at the beginning. As we all we're aware that coastal communities are now much more prone to natural disasters in a time of climate change, and the vulnerability will likely increase due to the development of climate change in coming years. And there have been quite a lot of literature on coastal disasters and its impact on small-scale fisheries and fishing communities in general. But it seems to me that the attention, there's not much attention paid to the land-based activities, particularly land ownership in the context of disaster recovery for small-scale fishers. However, there is growing attention to coastal land and natural disaster, particularly from the perspective of disaster capitalism. There are quite interesting pieces out there, and I'm very much inspired by these literature. And while these literature, that type of literature is quite valuable in many ways, there's not much attention paid to this cascading effects of the land policy change taking place after in the aftermath of the natural disaster. And there are quite several very inspiring work done by people like Fabini, Knudsen. These scholars worked on the importance of land tenure, land ownership in fishing communities in different contexts. So with that, my presentation aims at examining the questions like, how do land policies intersect with lives of small-scale fishers in disaster recovery? And what are the implications for a more just way of disaster recovery for small-scale fisheries? In other words, build forward better. So this is a map of my research site. So this is a map. Well, so on your left, that's the archipelago of the Philippines, and the Bantayan Island that this research is based on is in the middle. So you see a little square with a little arrow. So that's the and then so the little map, a big map, sorry, on the right hand side. That's the map of the Bantayan Island. There are 3 municipalities: Bantayan, Santa Fe, and Moderator. It's about 115 square kilometers, and the population size is about 145,000 people. And it's about 130 kilometers away from this regional center of Cebu City. So Cebu City is the second largest city in the country. And it's a gateway for many tourists to the Philippines. And let me remind you that the tourism in the Philippines has been booming in recent years. The number of arrivals have been continuously increasing. So Philippines, the tourism is very big in the Philippines, and particularly this area where the research is based on is also one of the up and coming tourist destinations. So before I talk about the case of Bantayan Island, I'll just give you a little bit of background of land situation in the Philippines. Unlike many countries, particularly in the developing world, land governance is not very strong in the Philippines. The cadastre is very kind of patchy and incomplete. It's all on a paper based, and the same paper cadastre has been used for decades. So the paper is not very clear anymore, and some are breaking off. Handwritings are quite sometimes it can be read. And then land title records, also quite incomplete and patchy. And there has been an issue of low titling rates. So many people don't, well, they say they own the land, but oftentimes they don't actually have the complete set of legal documents to actually prove that you have the land. So they have a few documents, but they're not a complete set, and then they're not considered legal ownership of the land in a strict sense. But often that's what people have. So there is a problem of low titling rate issue there. And in my research site, we don't really know, nobody seems to know exactly what the titling rate is over there, but a lot of people told me that it's around 20%. Some say just a handful lots. We don't really know, but I'd go for 20% of land being titled in the island. And for the small-scale fishers, they're the ones who usually don't have any legal right to the land. Many of them, of course, I'm not saying everybody, but a lot of them don't. They're mostly informal, undocumented, and at times illegal occupants or landholders. Now, Bantayan Island has another twist. It has been named registered as a wilderness area. So it's a form of protected area. And that was done in 1981 through the Presidential Proclamation 2151. President Marcos at that time listed Bantayan Island as a wilderness area for its key ecological features. So effectively, in a proclamation, he's basically said that the whole island will be a wilderness area, and then the local governments will need to designate the actual protected areas for like mangrove areas or coral reefs or nesting areas for the migratory birds, things like that. So, or water charging area, I think it's the word that he used. But anyway, these areas had to be negotiated and decided, delineated in a process. But that didn't happen because nobody wanted to give up their own land, and there was always an issues adjusting, the different interests coming from different groups of people. So basically, it was left as protected area, wilderness area, which means that the whole island was kept as wilderness area and without demarcating the actual protected areas for conservation. Now, this legal status was reinforced by the incorporation in National Integrated Protected Area System in 1992, and then again reconfirmed in 2018. So it is in a national system of protected areas. That means that they have to follow all these requirements, very strict requirements for development and titling the land, et cetera, et cetera. Now, this situation made it almost impossible to legally own and then trade property. Nobody can title the land anymore because it's protected under the protected status. And any legal development of land requires confusing and often impossible paperwork, and it's quite time consuming. So many of the development projects are actually, in a strict sense, not legal, lacking a few crucial documents and that. And then that's where the Bantayan Island was at when this happened. Super Typhoon Yolanda, and it's an actual name. Well, international name is Haiyan, but it's most commonly called Yolanda, and it's a local name in the Philippines. So I'll use the local name Yolanda here in this presentation. It is known to be, well, considered the strongest typhoon recorded since 1945 in the Philippines. It killed 6,000 people, almost 6,000 people, and nearly 2,000 people were still missing. So many people injured nationwide, and displaced 4 million people. It's considered the deadliest typhoon recorded in the Philippines. And if you look at the arrow, that's where Bantayan Island is. Actually, the typhoon went over Bantayan Island. So the island got the devastating impact from it. So strong wind and the storm surge caused devastating damage, as you can imagine. And as you can see in these pictures, most of the trees and buildings all knocks down to the ground. Some people told me that the water went to 20 meters inland from the shoreline. Allegedly, 90% of the buildings damaged. And mostly, when I say damaged, mostly destroyed to the ground. Not many people, fortunately, died. Only 22 casualties, but thousands got injured. For small-scale fishers, most of them lost their boats, their crucial fishing gear from the storm surge, from the wind, not falling all these objects onto those vital livelihood equipment. And the typhoon basically took everything they had, the shelter, the critical equipment for their livelihood. So in a wake of the disaster, the Philippine government quickly took the action of for reconstruction. So they drafted in a month or two, after a month or two from the typhoon, the government put the reconstruction assistance on Yolanda. In short, it's RAY, published and issued in December 2013. Stated that it will streamline operational enforcement of no-build zones. Now, the no-build zones was a newly created term in this context, and President Aquino at that time attempted for a blanket application of 40 meters no-build zone from the shore. So any houses within this area, 40-meter area from the shoreline, would have to eventually relocate. So that was his initial plan. Then it caused a big controversy. Of course, this was supposed to be applied to the disaster-affected areas, not all over the country, but the disaster-affected areas. But this, of course, caused a huge controversy. So it was later changed to no dwelling zone. Meaning that only targeting the residential buildings, not those tourism facilities like resorts or any other type, right? So only for coastal residents. And when I say coastal residents, they're mostly small-scale fishers. Now, again, this was baseless. There's no law to back up his proposition, so it caused a huge confusion and controversy even among the government agencies. So they came up, different government agencies came up with this memorandum circular in November 2019, saying that there's no blanket application of this no dwelling zone policy. It has to be case by case, it has to be based on existing laws and also the situation of hazard risks. So in practice, in the case of Bantayan, they apply this the law called Water Code, setting the easement zone from the riverbank or from the shoreline. And according to this law, the easement zone needs to be set, which is basically no build zone, no permanent building zone, 20 meters from the shoreline. So that was set to be the case in Bantayan. Now, this case caused some impact at the local level. When local government tried to abide with this law, they realized that they would need to relocate people from those people living in the easement zone, 20 meters, no building easement zone, to safety, to a safer land in a resettlement houses. Now, as I said earlier, this island is, the whole land is protected, and the land cannot be titled. And there's no legally, no land to proceed with the construction of these resettlement houses. And that became a big headache among the politicians and also local administrators. So while this situation continued in the last 30 to nearly 40 years, people cared about it, but nobody seemed to, especially in a government level, make a serious move to make a change. But because of this Yolanda situation took place, they had to really take an action for it. So DNR, Department of Environment and Natural Resources, took an action, like serious action, for legal steps to resolve the issue. Then, of course, there is anonymous support coming from politics, to change the status, with the land status to alienable and disposable, to be able to get the land. To get land can be titled, and also for further development purposes. And this was also supported by the local economic elites and outside capitalists coming from, cosmopolitan cities like Cebu City. Now, local government wasn't only thinking about moving small-scale fishers from the shore to the safer land, but they thought that there was a great opportunity for boosting the tourism industry. It was already there, but the local governments wanted more to expand more on the tourism development. So, according to some politicians and government workers actually said Yolanda was a blessing in disguise to those in tourism, because that opened the disaster actually opened an opportunity, new opportunities for tourism development. They drafted this comprehensive land use plan, and they designated the coastal space for tourism development. So the entire coast along the large portion of the coast of the municipality became a tourism zone where people shouldn't be living. So it's sort of following the same idea of 20 meters easement zone. So they put it in the plans, and they use this plan to actually convince people to move, and also to attract more interest, investment interest from capitalists. So the small-scale fisheries on the coast, they are subject for relocation, and more specifically to the resettlement sites. Now, the resettlement sites provided by the government, two sites are provided by the government, and one site was provided by an international NGO. This is the satellite picture of one of the government-provided resettlement sites. It's about 3 to 5 kilometers away. It's about 3 kilometers away from the coast, but when you go, if you have to travel to where the boats are, it would be more like 5 kilometers. It's quite far from the shore. And unfortunately, the standard of the building standard is appalling. There's no working water distribution. After 6 years, people started moving in, and located right next to uncontrolled garbage dump. So there is water contamination, and then that water that people use in there are mostly well water. So the well water they're using is quite heavily contaminated. And other safety issues are observed in this area. As you can see, it's far away from everywhere. So they have very limited livelihood opportunities. Also, it is quite expensive to live in places like that, especially when you're working. Your place of livelihood is not, just around the place. So people have to spend 20, 30 pesos per head to go to where your boat is or where you process the fish. And then if you have family of 4, this is a one-way cost. So you ended up spending 150, 20, 200 pesos a day. And when you consider the monthly, average monthly income is about 3,700 pesos, which is about roughly 72 US dollars. It's a lot of expense to spare. Food is more expensive. When you're in a coast, you receive free catch sharing, buy cheaper fish directly from the fishmongers. You can't do that anymore. Water, you have to pay a certain amount of money to get drinking water. You can also use well water for washing, and then taking a shower. Again, the water is contaminated, but it's probably good it's okay for washing clothes. But again, you have to pay money to carry 20 gallons of water that you would consume for a day. So there are a lot of hidden costs living in places like that. Now, apart from the household economy, there are some repercussions on a fishing practice for those living in those small-scale fishers living in these settlement sites. Because it's far away from the coast, there's less opportunities for socialization with other fishermen, and that is very important because that's the place where people talk about fishing locations, the type of fish that they're going for, where they saw fish, all these, vital information that the fishers need to curriculate for their days, following days fishing for small-scale fishers. And also, the condition of the sea or can change quite swiftly. So time to time, fishers need to respond swiftly to adjust to the change. For example, the strong wind comes and then fishers have to do something about it. There's a school of fish observed in certain areas. They want to go immediately. These things cannot be done because they live quite far away from the shore. Now, small-scale fishers also have an option of living in their own shelters if they can afford to build their shelter. So there are a lot of humanitarian NGOs try to assist them, but because they don't have any right to the land, these assistance were not given to these small-scale fishers. And again, local governments don't want the small-scale fishers to live in these 20 meters areas. So basically, for those who stayed in the original land, who could manage to stay in the original land, had to rebuild their houses on their own. Of course, they had some assistance, or the materials were given, but they incurred a lot of debt on their side. And then that debt can be bank loans, or it can be sort of a high interest money lenders, 20% interest per month sort of deal. So that is not good. Now, the government's strong policy on tourism development actually attracted a lot of tourism investment. So there's a huge speculation going on there for further development. The disaster actually made some people, disaster made Bantayan more famous, through the social media, through mainstream media, through words of mouth, many channels. And then the government's strong commitment to change the status quo generated also speculations. So there are many developments, hotels, restaurants, big and small. And there's also now it's ongoing now that the local airport, a tiny one, is now expanded. It's in a process of expansion to get the direct flight from Cebu City, and then in the future from Manila and some overseas cities. So this is going to be a big change for the island. This also caused property price, soaring property prices. Some say 2-3 times more increase in 5 years. Some say 10, 20, 12 times more in 10 years' time. Now, this situation let the provisional. No, they're not completely legally landowners, but provisional landholders to sell their properties at highest, to the highest bidders. You can't really sell the land if there are people living there, and you can't remove them because the land would be useless. So the landlords decided to try to kick them out in whatever way they can. So they often talk to them, negotiate them, sometimes threaten them to move out with or without compensation. And some lands being fenced off, so people lose access to the coastline. Now, most of the small-scale fishers are the subject for this kind of relocation as well. Now, because properties being developed on the coastline, and they say you can't put your boat in front of my lot, which is actually not legal. There's no law to prevent people putting the boats in the beachfront, as it's a public domain. But a lot of people do. A lot of landholders say that. So fishers have no choice, but they just scramble all the boats into the very tiny foreshore areas where their houses are located. So it's extremely congested. This congestion actually causes higher vulnerability to secure the boats and gear, because they're all piled up. There's nowhere to move the boats to the safer areas when the weather is bad or there's a typhoon coming up. Okay, so implications of disaster recovery for small-scale fishers. Sketchy and stumbling development plans existed even before disaster, but disaster was actually utilized as a leverage to materialize and accelerate the capitalistic.
You have 2 minutes, please.
Okay, yep, I'm finishing off. Sorry. Now, relocation was for safety and economic empowerment of small-scale fishers and other coastal inhabitants. But what happened is actually that did the kind of reverse effect on the lives of small-scale fishers. Worsened household economy from large debt and increased living cost. Detached from the space of livelihood and social network, vital livelihood assets being at higher risk, more imminent risk of displacement. And here came COVID-19. I wouldn't go into details of this, and there is a lot of analogy to the case of Bangladesh. But yeah, I wouldn't go any detail on this one. But anyway, it didn't help. So for build for better, in this case, observed in my case, I would say land security of small-scale fishers should be the priority in the disaster recovery process. This is largely neglected. And it shouldn't be, because this is crucial. This plays a crucial role in a recovery, more just recovery for small-scale fishers. And actually, there's a law in the case of the Philippines, Fisheries Code of 1998. It says they need to provide, the government need to provide settlement areas in coordination with concerned agency of the government, where certain areas of public domain, specifically near the fishing ground, shall be reserved for the settlement of the municipal fisherfolk. So there is a law, but this hasn't been practiced. Maybe choosing the closer locations or public transport service, at least, to have an access to the coastline. And small-scale fishers resettlement should be assessed against all of the impact on livelihood, not only the availability of land, not only what's available in a policy instrument, but you have to see also what it really entails, what the relocation actually entails in the lives of small-scale fishers. Cost of living is one thing, social network, social side of it is another thing. These things are not being taken into consideration. Policymakers need to know who they're supposed to protect. It's a bit cliche to say that, but it's actually very important. Not surprisingly, lawmakers seem to have, limited knowledge about small-scale fishers. When small-scale fishers are not agreeing with resettlement, they will say, "Oh, they're hot-headed people. They never learn, or they never change their way of life." It is actually not the case. They know what entails in their actual lives. but they don't get it. So, you know, fishing is a skill, specific location, specific livelihood. Just can't go to anywhere, right? Just can't go to anywhere in the sea. It takes time and cost and experiences, and that is vital for their livelihood. And to end with, I need to also say that the input of boats and gear for the recovery assistance it should be closely monitored, because what happened in the Bantayan is that because of the lack of coordination of government and NGOs, there are excessive amount of gear and boats provided to the small scale fishers and also non-fishers, because there's no complete set of fisher folk registration. So anybody who raised a hand claiming that they're small scale fishers, they received the boat and the gear. This worsened the congestion of the coastal land with boats. Sorry for going a bit over time.
Thank you very much
for listening to my presentation and opportunity. Thank you.
For nicely connecting how the changes in water and land are closely related in fishing livelihoods. Thank you so much. Now our next speaker is Joel Dash. Joel Dash is a faculty member in the Institute of Marine Science at the University of Chittagong in Bangladesh. He is interested in marine social research, particularly human-nature interaction in marine and social context of Bangladesh. Currently, his research addresses blue justice issue associated with blue economic intervention in Bangladesh coast as a PhD student at the University of Bremen. He is affiliated with the livelihoods Center for Tropical Marine Research, ZMT, and Center for Marine Environmental Science, MARU. So, floor is yours, Joel. Joel, please proceed.
Thank you, Dr. Mahmud. Can you see my screen? I think yes, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we can see it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, and very good morning from Bremen. It's a sunny morning, and I think we're running out of time, and some of the people in Japan, they are hungry because it's the lunch time. So I want to make it a bit short. So this is basically a work from my PhD, and I'm trying to explore the literatures in last year about the issues of small scale fisheries in Bangladesh. And the topic is there's a livelihood behind, and basically this research is supported by the Ministry of Science and Technology from Bangladesh, and I'm affiliated with the Glomar network here. It's a graduate school, so I'm basically working with the social ecological system groups of ZMT, and my supervisor is Dr. Marian Gezer. So basically we are trying to explore the blue economy context that the ocean has been treated for a long time like common heritage of mankind, sometimes the tragedy of the common or ecological frontiers or epistemological frontiers sometimes, and now it becomes economic frontier. So after the UN conference of Rio 20 in 2012, blue economy has been considered as a greatest concept to adopt it for the economic growth in most of the countries, and it is closely connected with sustainable development goals. So this could be a good vehicle to deliver a sustainable ocean harvesting or ocean development. So Bangladesh is also one of the countries who adopted blue economy as a policy in their seventh five-year plan, and which is finished in 2022, and it also in the 8th five-year plan, some of the reflections are there that the government is investing in the blue economy sectors. So they formed a blue economy cell, which is governed by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and basically in the previous five-year plan and the projects, they consulted with the stakeholders, and they tried to explore what are the untapped potentials of economy or ocean economy in Bangladesh. So Bangladesh is in the race to grow their income from the ocean. So our concern is that this blue economy also reinforced the blue growth, which was prevailing previously as well, but still the growth is now very much visible, and some of the major components includes the living resources, minerals. Can you mute the mic, Mr. Dr. Mahmud. Yeah. Minerals, energy, transport and trade, tourism and recreation. So Bangladesh also emphasizes on some of other issues like port development, shipping, energy sectors, along with the other sectors. So in particularly, Bangladesh invested in some coastal industries or like large terminals and the deep sea ports and power plants. Those are the mega projects which are actually located in the coastal areas. So there comes the small scale fisheries concern. And also in 2022, there is a statement from Bangladesh government that they got 11 trillion cubic feet hydrated gas in the Bay of Bengal. So more blue parties coming on. Yeah. So the my PhD research question or specific research question is that how these blue economy mega projects impact the access of poor people to the natural resources, particularly the small-scale fishers, and how could it hamper the livelihoods of the small-scale fishers of the coastal communities, and what could be the future options. So we are trying to explore the types of inequality and how do they affect the coastal residents, and what are the conflicts and why. So, and what are the supporting or relevant institutions are available to mitigate those or to fight or to combat those, and what could be the leverage points for some equitable distribution of income or equitable outcome. So basically, to explore this, I tried to do a systematic literature review first, and some other field observations I will talk later. So in systematic literature review, we centered two main keywords like blue economy and blue growth. And to make it comprehensive, we try to use some other keywords in searching like mega projects, coastal governance, social justice, gender, social ecological systems, distribution, poverty, etc. And from these particular selected articles, we try to make a backward search to make it more comprehensive and to get the whole picture of the blue economy and blue growth, which complies with the small scale fisheries and the social equity issues. Apart from that, we try to explore some national level policy plans, which is from the different countries who adopted the blue economy and blue growth. So these are the basic articles I studied. And this is the systematic literature review procedure. Apart from that, we had some field observations as well. So this talk will be based on these two methods. So basically, from the keywords, we found that the keyword shows that the centers are blue economy and blue growth because those are in the search engine. But we are trying to triangulate what could be the options for the social ecological systems or the poor or the social equity or small scale fisheries. So basically, there are some words like humans, economic and social effects, small scale fisheries, those are in the borderline and in a small portion. So maybe the dominating ones are like aquaculture and marine environment, investment, and blue growth, blue economy, those issues. Yeah. So the Bangladesh is in the right track to do the research on blue economy and blue growth, and you can see that Bangladesh is positioned here, and it's connected with the international community to do the researches on small scale fisheries, blue growth, blue economy, and social equity. So some of the key findings I found there that blue growth undermines social equity, and you can see that some of the large scale or mega projects worldwide or globally hampered the small scale fisheries and displaced them, and also created some problems for the smaller scale fisheries before blue economy even sometimes. So here comes the points of the justice, what we are talking about today, the adjusting the justice lens. As Bennett mentioned that there are 6 types of ocean justice or ocean equity. You can say that the decognitional, procedural, management, distributional, environmental, and contextual, which are very much connected with the issues which impact the small scale fisheries globally. Yeah, so some of the terms we found very interesting, that there are some conflicts between the coastal investment and small scale fishers, user environment and user conflicts. And Babnik mentioned one term, that's coastal grabbing, or it's you can say the marine grabbing or coastal grabbing, the spaces which are grabbed by the blue growth, and sometimes it also grab the controls of and the powers of the small scale fishers to go to the fishing ground or to use their routes. So some of the industries are old, but some of the industries are new. So basically they're trying to grab the control and the coastal spaces. That's why Ator and Misel they mentioned about the blue degrowth. There might be a need for a degrowth or the control of blue growth. And blue fix is also a concept of 3 types of fixing, like protein, and energy, and environment. So blue justice is the term which is very much connected with the blue economy, and that is very interesting because when there is an investment, so there might have some conflict, and justice comes right in the track. So some of the researchers found that there are some incompatibility between the sectors in the blue growth, or we can say that blue economy growth. So, and there are some antagonistic interactions between the sectors, which is prevailing and creating some problems. So, 10 risks, which are very crucial, mentioned by Bennett in his one of the super article. So these 10 risks are also prevailing in some other literatures in different form. So those 10 risks are actually prevailing in the context of blue economic growth and small scale fisheries. So basically the dispossession, displacement, ocean graving, environmental justice, marine degradation, livelihood impact, and loss of marine resources, inequitable distribution, social and cultural impacts, marginalization of women, and the rights of the indigenous people, and the governance issues. So basically in Bangladesh, there are some good studies on blue growth and small scale fisheries. So there is a study on regarding the Rampal, that there are strugglings over the rights and access to the lands, which is already evidenced, and eviction and exclusion of small landholders are happening there. So basically displacement, livelihood loss, those are happening as well in the Moishkeli. That is a particular island I will discuss later. So this particular island is around 84,000 hectares. So government already taken over 1/5 of this island for the sake of development. Until 2041, you can imagine that there are 15 power plants will be established, and LNG terminal and deep sea ports are also planned to establish there. And there is a recent study found that the uprooting of small scale fisheries, mangrove, and wildlife would be happen. So also there is a conflict between the navigation of the route they are using by the small scale fishers and the large scale mega projects. So, and there are some basic studies on blue economy framework and some policy that is suggesting the government to reinforce or to embrace the blue economy. So I have taken 4 principal studies by Patil that towards the blue economy, they said that focusing on economic opportunities, generating wealth consideration, and exploring the specific key issues. And one from the Sarkar that they're telling about the strategic planning, environmental sustainability, which is closely connected to the social sustainability as well, maybe, but there is no clear indicator or clear direction about ensuring social equity. So that is a concern. And there is a paper of Islam as well for capacity building, proper policy formation. Those are very good recommendation. And from Hussain also, they are telling about some technological development. So basically, what we found that the position of social equity is a bit missing in the policy papers as well, or the recommended policy plans in Bangladesh. So these are the government's plan for adopting blue economy in their 7 5-year plan. So you can see that in these plans there is no sign of addressing the social equity or environmental sustainability, particularly, or the justice issues. So maybe they are recommending to establish some marine academy or some protecting the fisheries or enhancing the fisheries production, and sometimes investing more in the coastal industries. But we are concerned about the social sustainability. Yeah. So these are the three strategies which are supporting those 12 action plan, basically. And there is a project called No Crisis that is working on the 7 case studies in the world. So Bangladesh is one of them, and they're working to examine the origin and drivers of ocean conflict, which is very much aligned with my PhD research. So that's why I'm trying to explore there's some of the methods from them. That's process tracing, governance mapping, ecosystem goods and services and studies, and cross-case analysis. So based on some work of No Crisis, which I'm closely involved with, we got some preliminary or early signs of the impact. So for my PhD study, I'm trying to explore these 2 particular contexts. One is the Moshkali Island, which is around 84,000 hectare, what I mentioned earlier, and so government already acquired 12,000 hectare, more than 12,000 hectare from this particular island. And my research participants are mainly vulnerable groups, laborer, fishers, salt producers, and others. So this is the picture of an island. Though I'm sorry for that, this is in Bengali, but still you can visualize the scenery, what is happening there. This is Bay of Bengal, and this is Moshkali Channel. So a lot of development is happening over there, and they are distracting the mangrove forest and cutting the hills and displacing some peoples from their origin, and also creating some conflict for the small scale fisheries, because this particular area is around 18-meter depth, so it's good for navigation. That's why government is trying to invest in this particular island. And another field of my research study is Rampal, which is very near to Sundarban, the UNESCO heritage site. So that's also breaches the Ramsar Convention. And there is a publication as well, that massive transformation of land control associated with the industries and enforced the inequity. So our preliminary findings from the No Crisis fieldwork is basically in Moshkali area. So in Moshkali, there are some particular problems that some of the people from the north of Moshkali, they are struggling more because the industry is nearby them, and so some of the participants, I tried to incorporate some of the contents from the participants, that this LNG terminal is creating so much sound for them initially, and that is like an earthquake. And also one participant said that they have never been consulted, and they just know that government is taking their lands, and government has started construction. Though there are some early signs that they got some compensation, but I'm not sure that what could be a compensation for a whole life anyway. So another woman, we said that she doesn't know that she did not know that their lands are also taken by the government. Even she said that if she would know, then she would fight for that, because they are facing some particular problems. Some of the smallholders, they lost their livelihoods because the salt farmers, their salt producing zones are also taken by the governments in some cases. So their continuation of salt farming is also discontinued, and you can see that the outsiders are getting the jobs, and the daily laborers are also. So the local peoples are losing the livelihoods. And small scale fishers, those fishers who fishing villages, you can see that the fishing villages are experiencing the massive erosion there, and some of the compensation in a kind of new houses for some of the small scale fishers of the other communities, but they have less access to the sea because there is a big well, and they are not getting proper environment for gardening or some other issues. So the message is clear. I'm taking it from Professor Sen Zentov's The Power of Game of Language. If coastal fishers had been a distinct marine species, they would have been on the red list for more than 40 years now. So that's reflected in Bangladesh case as well, that we should have some concern. So what could be the concern that the building future? So Bennett gave a model of inclusive governance for the blue economy, which we found very effective, that sustainability and equity must be prioritized or central in blue economy, and some comprehensive legislative rules and regulations should be formed to address blue economy, or to embrace the blue growth. And every nation should have some governmental guideline or require some equitable treatment for local people, and so that they can get the benefits from the blue growth. So they will embrace this in a good way. Otherwise, it will not bring the social cohesion or something like that. So inclusive governance should be ensured in the blue economy at all scales. And there are some thoughts for future, for my future research as well, that Bangladesh perspective, what could be the answers when special planning or in a particular institutional setup. We know that there are some international guidelines for small scale fisheries, but those are in the policy levels. I'm not sure about the implementation of those. And we recommend that social equity, equitable distribution, and fairness in policies should be ensured so that the blue growth will sustain. So thank you very much for your attention. I will appreciate for any comments or questions.
Thank you very much, Joel, for your nice and elaborate presentation in the context of Bangladesh. In Bangladesh, there are lots of activities are going on this blue growth and blue economy, but there are very few mention or few documents about that. Those are concerned about small scale fisheries in Bangladesh and how the fate of the small scale fisheries will be in future in the context of blue growth. It needs lots of attention and also interventions. So now we have all three presentations. I would like to thank all the panel speakers for their excellent talk. And now the floor is open for the audience. We have one question from Michael Favini. Michael, if you are here, I am now unmuting you so that you can ask the questions to Dr. Shegi.
Thank you, Shio, for an excellent presentation. My question was just regarding the fisherfolk who were relocated. Did any of them end up quitting fishing, going into farming or other sorts of livelihoods? Indeed, did any of them end up working in tourism-based livelihoods, or did they just sort of muddle along with fishing despite the negative impacts and increased vulnerabilities? Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Shegi.
Yep. Thank you very much for the question. Well, those who relocated, some of them became drivers. Others, I'm not quite sure. The diversification of the livelihood of those relocated. But because the relocation sites are far away from the town centers, it is sort of a commercial zone. So as I said, it's very limited. They have very limited options. Tourism, again, you know, it's close to the garbage dump site and it's inland. So there are not many tourism related facilities around. So yeah, drivers are certainly one type of livelihood. But those who didn't actually move decided to chip away from fishing, and then they started being engaged with construction work. Oh, construction is certainly something that they do. Yes, construction, or the ones that relocated, they do construction as well. But those who remain in original land, they do constructions, the tourism boat operators, and what else? Yeah, mainly those.
Yeah, thank you. Don't see any more question.
Well, I actually haven't been able to connect to the internet for a long time, but I was able to follow the discussion. So Mahmud, can I ask a question?
Yeah, please proceed.
Thank you. So I do that to all three panelists because I think these are really, I didn't expected we would end the conference feeling a little bit like doom, but we was just so happy for 2.5 days, and now we're facing COVID, and now we're facing disaster and all the displacement, and I don't know what to say. But here we are. We're trying to adjust all the lenses, including the justice lens. And one of the kind of questions that TBTI has formulated since the start actually has a lot to do with what you talked about here. We called it defending the beach, right? So there must be a way to help secure whether it's a land tenure rights or, empowering the voice of the people or increasing somehow the organization so that they would become better protected, whether through the legal system or through any kind of, I know it's difficult because we are talking about large scale cooperation perhaps and against what's happening with small scale fisheries, but also disaster is something that we can't control, but we can control what happens or the recovery policy. What you particularly, Chio, mentioned, it happened in other countries, right? In Thailand, it's the same thing when we had the tsunami. So can we not take lessons, right, from what we have done well in many places? Because there's a lot of examples out there. So we cannot treat this as it's happened for the first time. It has happened for many, many years, for decades. Can we not take some lessons and go with, some suggestion about what can we do to adjust this, to rectify the situation and do better? So I'd like to hear a comment from each of the panelists. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is a very nice observation and explanation of the situation. So, would you like to answer the panelist? First, Dr. Sheki, please.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and for the comments. And I do agree with what happened in Thailand, Sri Lanka, in Indonesia, many other places after Asian tsunami, 2008 was it? The tragic event led to a large displacement of people, and it's a very good question, but it's a very difficult question to answer. Seems to me that this economic ideology, the neoliberal ideology of commercially valuable sort of resources need to be utilized in a maximum way to maximize the profit or economic advancement by using these highly commercially valuable assets that a lot of low-income countries would want to use those assets, and in that power of the drive of this sort of neoliberal thinking for the further development by to utilize, take advantage of this opening of opportunity is just so attractive, I guess, for people with power, people in power. And often I think, these things are used, the idea is these thinking is sort of justified by, the national regional economic growth, while sort of neglecting that sort of a well-being, social well-being of people with, in a how do I say, in impoverished group of people. And so these, rhetoric, the narratives of kind of, these projects can, enhance the national regional economy, sort of, masks what happens on the ground, and then that kind of justifies this, the brutality of these policy undertaking. And I don't know. That's the best I can. That's the best way I can see how this continues to happen.
I understand why it's happening. I'm just wondering what we have been doing in our role as researchers. Are we just repeating the experience that we are seeing and write about it as if we don't know anything about this? I mean, this is not the first time it's happening, and I'm not really blaming you or anything. I'm just getting really frustrated for all of us here, right? Because it cannot be that after all these years, we're still hearing the same thing happening as if it's happening for the first time. So what is exactly our role as researchers or as people working in this context? If we are still going to be talking about it as if we are hearing it for the first time, then we're not doing our job, I don't think. Sorry to say, but that's what all this building forward would have to be, right? Because otherwise, it's so bad for everyone. And we can't take, just whatever we wrote on paper, right? It sounds really good, all those principles and etc. But how would that work on the ground? So I wanted to challenge everyone and thinking really hard about what does it really mean? Maybe we should not do any more research if we cannot offer anything that would really impact what we would see in the future. Sorry, I'm not blaming anyone here. I'm just challenging all of us to think a little bit about this. This is such a, it's a little bit, it is frustrating, of course, right? But there must be a way.
Yeah.
We have a comment in the room as well, by the way. There's somebody want to say something. So we go back to you first, Mahmud, and then we'll let another person make comment from the room.
Dr. Sajidul Haq, you want to add something? Or?
Check. Can you hear me?
Yes, or maybe some comments coming.
Please be brief because we have running out of time. So just one sentence.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I just want to continue with the last comments from the Rachana that yes, I also feel that what we are doing as a research that on the community small scale fishers are under risks. And yes, the last few days ago in one of my presentation, I was telling in my country that yes, my research these days what is showing, and before 10 years it was the same findings, but what is the mainly here, the research, yes, we are identifying. My observation is yes, we are identifying, and we that our contribution the researchers are doing identifying the problems, but here policy makings, the governance is the most important to overcome the situation. That's so we need to give the policy making information. That's my
Joel, you want to comment?
Thank you, Rachana, for raising the question. Yeah, so the political economy you have to understand, and we can only suggest to the government because the implementation is based on the government's will. So in some countries like Bangladesh or some developing countries, you cannot do too much against those power relations. So you can only just suggest it. So stopping the research is not the ethical from ethical point of view. You can do the researches and you can suggest. I'm not sure when they will realize the essence of our research.
Yeah, thank you, Joel. We have one comment from Alina. So I'm just unmuting you. So if you want to proceed, please.
Well, there are two comments, Mahmud, one from Elena and one from Rayhan from the room here.
Thank you. I try to be quick here. I'm representing NGO from Indonesia. And what I see, I mean, I'm really interested what Ratana said, that even in NGO sector, like we cannot, I mean, we're not aligned between marine conservation and NGO or small scale fisheries NGO. And yeah, that's what we try to do actually, like how to be aligned in the sector. And now how can we also be aligned with the researcher? And I think it's important how like we have like integrative movement, because like what NGO is doing is we try to advocate what the researcher, the recommendation from the researcher. But when it's the research is not really well aligned with the movement, it's kind of like difficult. So yeah, this is like, I mean, like this is like a homework for all of us, I think. But I mean, as an NGO, also like our challenge is also like we do a lot of things, but lack of documentation, lack of to be like a research product. So yeah, how can we have integrative movement, I think. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see two comments, but both of them Michael also asked his questions, and also now Alina. So I think I don't see any more questions here. Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah. So Niraka, yeah, I'm just unmuting you. So please proceed. Niraka.
Actually, my question was very similar to Na's question. I was also very curious because I'm also studying as a PhD student, similar issues, especially related to disaster capitalism. And so for me, I find it quite challenging because as a critical political economist, I'm very, very good at finding problems in the world. But as I've learned from sociologists, it's also very important to find sort of alternatives that are out there, or what are people doing outside the mainstream. And I think what I've learned from my PhD studies is that, yes, I think that there are very difficult situations and there's always a vulnerable population, but there are always also groups out there doing amazing things despite the adversity. For my example, in my own case studies, Miyagi Prefecture is doing a lot of, it's in a very difficult situation, especially post-disaster. And but I've also found that in cases in Iwate Prefecture, for example, a lot of the smaller fishing cooperatives are doing some great collaborative work with local fishers, and they really try hard to listen to the needs of local fishers and try to rebuild and revitalize the community for them. So I think that that's one thing that us as researchers can do, is that we can take the sociological approach and look at these alternatives and bring them to light and show really good examples of successful governance systems. Thank you.
Okay, there's a comment from Nireka. She cannot join due to power cut, so I can read out her comments. Many thanks for all the presentation. It would be good to know whether there were social mobilization struggles in the fishing communities against development projects or relocations, and what constraints are there for protest and supporting these movements as a researcher. Maybe this is a recipe for further research for Joel and Dr. Seki. So yeah, please.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment that it's a very vital point that what could be the fishers movement or something like that. We can see that during the fishing ban, when the fishers are not getting enough fish, so government allocate 300 crore budget to check that they are not fishing because the system is not working. So that is the problem. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much, Joel, for your final comments. So we are just running out of our time. So I would like to thank the panelists for their excellent presentation on emerging issues that demand immediate attention and response. Thanks to the audience for their patient hearings and thought-provoking questions. I appreciate the excellent support from the conference secretariat and technical team. And with this, I am signing off now. See you after lunch in 3 parallel sessions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mahmud.